And there's a range of possibilities for somebody who wants to start something of their own. A bunch of our alumni have through the years started their own businesses. I think if you were to Google this chain of restaurants called Burger, I think there are quite a few of them. Maybe I think there are more than 50 of these. So it's a burger chain, and many such examples I can give. Started by two batchmates few years back. Because the younger generation today has more options to choose from, right from so my sons, one of them has chosen to do computer science and the other one is doing 3D digital design. As I look at the options that are available, there are very large range of options available to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to speak about careers in hospitality, and the introduction kind of gives it away why I should be allowed to do that. I've spent a little over 12, 13 years working in the industry. Started off with hotels and then, of course, retail. And then a large part of the other side of business being in academics. Also, I remain connected as a consultant, so closely connected with the industry. And when I look at guiding potential hospitality professionals who would look at this career pathway in the future, I start off by asking you to think about building a career from 4 dimensions. Right? Of course, there needs to be a basic interest in it. Right? If you're not interested in something, I think you don't want to get into something that you don't have a basic interest in, because you're not going to be able to put in the time and effort that's required to succeed. And I think that goes for anything that you do in life. You're watching a movie that you love, the time flies. You barely know, when the 2 hours, 2.5 hours flew by. So it's important to figure out what you're interested in. Very easy for me to speak here and say, find out what you're interested in. But it's important that you do that. And one of the ways is to hear people just like you're doing through this week. Then, of course, the skills and abilities. You have to ask the question, what is it that a career direction in an XYZ domain, what is it going to require? And if you see a fit in terms of a response which says, looks like I can acquire these skills, or I have some of these abilities, I think you're already on a start. There needs to be a fit with your personality. For example, if you're looking at a customer-facing business, and if you're a very introverted person, you have a challenge to work through. It is not that introverts cannot look at customer-facing businesses. There are parts of the customer-facing businesses where there are opportunities for people who are not oriented to be very interactive. But largely, I think that is something that you need to be mindful of. The individuals who love to work in groups, there are individuals who don't like to do that. So, and knowing a little bit more about yourself, and I think while we do all of these tests today, which are able to give pointers, but I think it comes down to your being able to reflect on who you are as an individual and see if you can tie that in also from a point of view of a career path being in sync with who you are, and also your value system. What are you looking for in life? And that drives, or at least connects the rest of the 3 elements to a point where you're able to get a basic yes or no in terms of even the choices that are looking at you. Some of these decisions happen when you're closing your 10+2. In fact, right after your 10th, you've chosen some of the subjects which you liked, or hopefully you felt that you can connect them with a potential career pathway. There's a lot that you can do outside of the typical STEM pathways, and career in service industry, and specifically the hospitality sector, opens up fantastic opportunities for anyone who is looking beyond. In fact, for the longest time, a lot of people who have looked at hospitality have come from sciences, and today, of course, there is a shift where folks from the liberal arts, the commerce backgrounds, they're all looking at these prospects. But remember, when you look at even non-STEM pathways, you'll realize that this is where the large service sector landscape is looking at you. It's massive, and at some point you have to figure out which part of this landscape is of interest to you. But clearly, there are opportunities that you can consider. So anyone who feels that, oh, I did not, it doesn't look like I took science subjects and engineering is not for me, or medicine is not for me, or even some of the other connected opportunities, there's absolutely no reason for you to second guess in terms of the range of possibilities and opportunities that exist for you. My reason for choosing hospitality, like I mentioned, was not as well informed as the generation that I'm speaking to is, and the access to information, the access to speaking to people in the industry, the access that you have in schools, initiatives like these, that wasn't the case. In fact, if I look back, by all means, I shouldn't have taken science. I think it would have been a great idea for me to pick up commerce subjects. Uh, it would have been a great idea for me to still consider hospitality, but I would have avoided taking the science subjects to start with in 11th. But none of this was happening. So there was no conversation, there was no counseling. Uh, what did work out well for me was a chance interaction with a chef in our family. And one of the things that I understood very easily, and this is, I'm going back more than 30 years, when India had just three big uh, chains of hotels. So there was, of course, the Taj Group, which is IHCL, there was ITC, and then the third one was East India Hotels or the Oberoi's Group. You had these three possibilities. The organized retail format was not existent in this country. The mid-segment hotel chains, nothing was there, no organized catering, no events. So none of the play that we see today even existed. But what caught my attention was this statement, and I share this in every opportunity that I have when I speak to young people. And that statement was, till the end of the world, people in the service sector will have something to do, they will have employment, and they'll have work. Right? And the gentleman put it in Hindi, and I'm going to quote unquote state that. So he said, "Rehti duniya tak is industry mein kaam rehta hai." And that I signed in on that. So as a young person, 17, 18, I'm thinking, this looks interesting. He's saying there's always going to be work. That's what I want, right? That there's always going to be work and there's going to be growth. The growth wasn't that much in comparison to what we see today. Today, you have all possible international brands in India. I could rattle off 15 names and you'll say, yes, all of these guys are here, from the Hyatt, the Marriott, just keep rattling on names, IHG, so on and so forth, organized food service companies that are there, restaurant chains, coffee shop chains, uh, pubs, so on and so forth. Large event companies, small event companies, catering companies, contract food services. In a couple of minutes, I'll share some of that information. But clearly, what is important for everyone who's on this conversation is to recognize that there is a massive opportunity. The second bit I always emphasize on is the skill set that you acquire is functional all over the globe. I have worked in US, UK, in India, right? And the skill sets that I acquired during my graduation or during my earlier training, they were functional everywhere. I don't think an architect can do that. I don't think a lawyer can do that. If you have to practice law in US, you'll have to go and do your qualification again from there. Same holds true for a lot of professions. Hospitality is special that way, that your skill sets are functional globally. Today, young people have opportunities to start things of their own with very little capital, or capital that is coming through HNIs who are willing to invest money in new ventures. The overall growth rate of GDP, all of you know, we are an economy that's really pacing itself. What is critical is that in this landscape of economic growth, I'll encourage you to look at reports from uh, places like HVS or Hotel Live. I can share more information separately as well. When you look at this data that is coming from these consulting firms who look at the sector and provide information, uh, the tourism and hospitality sector is a very significant part of our economy, and that immediately translates into opportunities, because if the size of the pie is growing and if it is significant and continues to become larger, the play in that is going to be there for in a lot of areas and different roles and career paths for anyone who chooses to get involved. There was a lot of negative conversation during COVID, and or what is going to happen to the industry. And how many times I must have answered that question for parents and for students and potential applicants for our programs. What's going to happen? And I said that earlier, and I was responding to the same voice in my head which said, this is a customer-facing business. And it is amazing to see how fast the industry came back and how massively the demand side has become today, to a point where it's unbelievable the level of shortfall at all levels in the industry. What that means is that you're going to grow faster than you can imagine. One of the reasons for me to move to US from India was, in those days, with just 3 odd brands to work for, you would get a promotion every 5, 6, 7 years if you're lucky. I was working with folks who were 10 years older than me, doing a great job, and they were struggling to get promoted. Whereas my journey in US, about a year and a half, I was able to get promoted. That's the case. That's what's happening to India today. So today, if you're a skilled, talented, hardworking individual with passion for the business, you will grow to become a general manager when you're in your early 30s. Unimaginable when I started in the industry, but that's a reality today. And if you give it time, it will pay you back. There's a lot of conversation around hard work and about entry-level salaries. I'm going to touch on that for a minute. It's important to understand that initially, when you are getting skilled and trained, the salary structures are a little different. 3 years out, as you start growing, it gives you back manyfold. So anybody who wants to find out more information about that, feel free to reach out and I'll be able to share more. I will share some of that even today, but recognize, don't be, if you have passion for this sector, this industry, and if you have basic interest, don't be misled into believing that it doesn't pay. It pays beautifully, and I'm speaking of that through my own personal experience. So I can validate that for myself and for a whole bunch of people, our alumni and people who have gone through our programs, and the international opportunities. It's unbelievable. I mentioned some of those areas. This is not restricted to just these. Health, wellness, boutique hotels, mid-segment hotels, and resorts, cloud kitchens, virtual kitchens, endless, right? So as you're hearing me, you would hopefully be hearing that if I'm interested in this, let me find out more. Let me speak to people who are working in the industry. And of course, people who are successfully either running businesses or have shown growth trajectory. Those are people you can emulate. Those are career paths that you can look at yourself. I wanted to make sure that you also have a sense of not just what hospitality management is, but about how does a typical program look at. I think what you're seeing on your slide will help me answer both questions. Hospitality management essentially is going to look at an operational core, which is about ensuring that you are running the hospitality operation. And clearly, it will have 4 pillars. That's food production, the service side of it, the housekeeping, and of course, the front office, which is the front end. This is the operational core. And from this operational core, we run these businesses. And this is going to be true of catering companies, hotels, event management companies, airlines. All of them will have elements of this operational core. A typical program will, what it's going to do is, in the first year, it's going to strengthen this. And interestingly, what also happens during that focus on the operational core is that you are going to run through what is a typical customer cycle or a guest cycle in a manner where, when you're running through your first year practicals, there will be a day when you are producing cooking recipes, trying out different types of cuisines, preparing the food. On a given day, you are going to be handling the service end of it. So serving that. On a given day, you'll be sitting as a customer experiencing that. And parallelly, the front office and housekeeping sessions. The orientation for the first year, of course, is completely practical alongside some basic subjects. So you will, of course, learn about accounting, basic finance. You will learn about marketing, digital marketing. So if you visit our website and look at the program structures, you'll see all of these courses come through. After year one, you test out what you have learned in an internship scenario. What that does do is that within that operational core, you have to figure out what is it that I'm more excited about, what is it that I see myself doing more. So to start with, I chose F&B service. So I started off a restaurant manager. I started off as a management trainee, quickly a restaurant manager, and then in the food retail side of business, because that's the direction I chose. Somebody could have chosen food production. Others choose different pathways. Then, depending on which direction you chose, you become departmental heads after working for a few years, and then potentially into mid-management, general management positions, and even regional positions for large businesses. The year 2 and 3 start strengthening your management and leadership aptitude. And they also try and test out the learnings that you have brought from your internship and the thought process of what you want to do in your career to crystallize the career pathway that is going to be your choice. Sometimes individuals don't want to work in operations and they realize that a little later. There are opportunities in marketing, training, HR, revenue management. So there are lots of those domains that are also open to an individual who chooses to be a part of the sector, be a part of the industry, and yet not look at doing just operations. Sometimes what individuals do is they spend a few years in the operations because the maximum number of opportunities are there, and then they branch off into other areas based on where their interest and what drives their thought process in terms of the future career pathway that they would like to build for themselves. Of course, if you look at the first bit of discussion that I had or comment I had is to figure out whether there is a fit with what hospitality is about and whether it's a fit with who I am and who I want to be and the career I want for myself. What I am sharing is indicative it's not by any means completely exhaustive, but it gives you a sense. If you're a people's person, if you like food, if you like cooking, if you like to follow trends, service trends, if you're communicative, a lot of people have, they love to organize events, host events. You have great organizing capacities and abilities and eye for detail. But I think the last one is very important, work ethic. And even as I was putting this down, I actually replaced something else which was there because I felt very strongly that I want to put this out and say that. I don't think there is anything in life where if you have a poor work ethic, you will do well. But the service industry in general and hospitality, it's a demanding industry. And I think anyone who has watched even movies or shows that show how hotels work or how kitchens work, you'd see that there's a certain amount of stress that is there because you're delivering product and service in real time to customers. Without a strong work ethic, I think it'll be very challenging. You have to show up on holidays. So there are aspects around this business that don't work for everyone. So when I was in US, I worked all Christmas days, and they would keep asking me, why you don't want to take break in Christmas? And I worked in hotels. I understand that that's a busy time, so that's when you work. So there is the element of sacrifice that comes through. As you grow into senior roles, this becomes less prevalent because you've kind of earned your position in the organization, and then your operating role changes into more strategic role, and as that happens, this moves away, but you have to earn that. So yes, there is a certain amount of stress, and I use the word stress in a positive way, not a negative way, because that's what would get the adrenaline going for an operations person who's passionate about making sure that he hits the shop floor every day and does what he or she needs to do to run the business in a manner where it is looked at as a quality experience by its customers. there is no bias for uh, the gender. A lot of people have this misconception that is the industry safe for ladies or not? Absolutely. It's not just safe, it welcomes ladies to join in all roles. There is not one department in a hospitality business where you cannot find, right from security to any aspect of business operations, leadership roles, where you see ladies in all types of roles, all the way to senior roles. I did mention that you have quick growth, strong promotional pathways. Uh, uh, your life is not monotonous. Every day is unique. It brings its unique set of challenges. And for those of you who want to build something of your own, become an entrepreneur, I think the timing has never been better in terms of the opportunities. The digital backend allows you to set up businesses, run them. The capital requirement for some of the options that exist is not that much. And there's a range of possibilities for somebody who wants to start something of their own. A bunch of our alumni have through the years started their own businesses. I think if you were to Google this chain of restaurants called Burger, I think there are quite a few of them. Maybe I think there are more than 50 of these. So it's a burger chain, and many such examples I can give. Started by two batchmates few years back, and it's doing very well. And similarly, a range of these examples I can give of young people. It was not as easy when I entered the industry more than 30 years back. The possibilities and the opportunities were not there. In fact, that's the reason I keep pushing the envelope in telling young people to consider hospitality career, because the landscape could not be more welcoming for the right kind of talent and the right kind of mindset uh, that people bring. So, of course, that's something that has to be there. It would have become apparent to you in this conversation so far that the operations is the heart of the business. It's actually heart of any business, because that's where the product and service emanates from. And the support functions are critical, very important. But bulk of jobs, there is a list of these possible career choices and job roles that I will share in a minute. All of these are possibilities that you can choose from, right? And it really depends on an individual where your interest and passion lies. You can have that journey. My own journey, if I were to break it down, it starts with looking at F&B service, and then working through the restaurant management space, then food retail space, consulting space, and then lastly, over the last decade and a half plus, is the educational space. So it's the same guy. So it's the same guy who started off uh, in the industry, and over a 30-year plus period, this is where he is at. So there, all of these are possibilities that the journey defines. You will make those choices, but remember, those choices are larger than they ever have been. So absolutely do your research, find out as much as you can, and reach out if you need to. Outside of, I know I just got 30 minutes here, and I would want to utilize that to give you a broad overview. But by all means, folks who have more questions and want to find out more, absolutely. Lot of layers of the service industry hire people from hospitality, aviation, banks, event management companies I mentioned, and some of the other. The list is kind of endless. Even food stylists and bloggers, these are specialists who are being hired today by restaurant chains and food service providers and others and I'm surprised with the amount of money they get paid, and the sheer number of opportunities that are out there. The list is endless, really. Revenue management space itself is very buoyant. Today, bartenders, there's very strong demand, mixologists, sommeliers, people who understand wines, just endless. How do you get to one of these opportunities or know them more, or eventually find your way to these? The hospitality management programs that are out there. The 3-year, 4-year ones, those who are NEP compliant are going to be 4 years. So we have a 4-year program with a 3-year exit at a degree and a 4-year exit at an honors degree. The typical hospitality program will set you up to have enough to get into the industry in a chosen direction. It will give you enough to ensure that you run through the initial 10 years and figure out where your passion takes you thereafter. But one of the things that I caution everyone is to avoid, unless there is a financial stress or there's some other reason, avoid a short-term program. A lot of times people think, let me do a short-term program and get my foot in the door. And so they are just purely operational focused. So those typical 1-year programs can be good testing out programs, but it makes sense to put in the 3 years at least to get a degree, for the simple reason that, as I mentioned, you would be operationally strong, you would have had your internship, you would have had a journey where you understand leadership, you understand strategy, you understand finance, you understand all those pins that are going to be very useful to you 3 to 5 years out as you start growing quickly. Without these underpinnings, you will struggle, and you'll struggle in charting a growth path, because after initial years, you want to make sure you're doing more than just running uh, the operations. You want to get into supervisory management, mid-management roles. So that's my recommendation always, that choose a strong program from a reputed place. And there are quite a few programs out there, including, of course, ours. And you can by all means find out more about it. But today is not about that. So I will not speak about our program, but I'll encourage you to find out more about these programs that are out there. But consider something which is a larger spread program versus, there's a lot of short-term programs out there. I don't really recommend those. Endless bunch of job roles. List continues. I was wondering whether I even want to keep the list. The only reason I kept it on is because if you're looking at this, you're wondering, how many of these opportunities are really there? And this is not even exhaustive. So this is indicative at best. Hopefully, I have been able to, the mandate for me was to provide you with a sense of, what the sector is about, the pathways that are there, the typical structuring of the programs. And hopefully I've been able to do that. I'll be happy to take questions, but before that, I think a couple of minutes I'll take to give you a strong overview of where I see the trends heading and where I see the industry heading. My sense is that because the younger generation today has more options to choose from, right from, so my sons, one of them has chosen to do computer science and the other one is doing 3D digital design. As I look at the options that are available, there are very large range of options available to you. That makes it a little tricky for you to choose what you want to do. Don't be led into picking up something just because that's the trend of the day. You don't want to become a lawyer just because somebody told you that लॉ के अंदर बहुत डिमांड है. डिमांड है का मतलब ये नहीं है कि आप लॉ करें. Similarly, just because I told you that there is massive demand for talent in hospitality doesn't mean you want to do hospitality. It needs to be the right fit for you. But one thing that I can guarantee you is for anyone who chooses to pursue a pathway, it's a long road with full of opportunities. It is a sector that's growing rapidly. Every hotel chain, if you were to Google and go on their websites and find out, right from the Lemon Trees, the Sarovar Group, and these are mid-segment chains जो exist भी नहीं करती थी. Tulip, then, and I'm not even talking about the big players. One of my batchmates, he runs the F&B management for the entire Marriott in India group. They're struggling to, they're opening more hotels than they've ever opened. So new hotel openings across all segments, the luxury segment, the mid segment, the budget segment, the growth in the second tier, 3-tier cities in India, it's exploding. And that's not the end of it. Interestingly, the international opportunities that today we are seeing our interns go to US on J1s for their internship exposure. I never saw that for as long as I've been in the industry, that's happening over the last 2 years. European markets, UK is behaving in a manner which I've never seen post Brexit, in terms, because they're feeling a shortfall of talent, and they're of course looking at students from India or professionals from India all the time. Middle East has always been active. So if you're looking to work globally, if you're looking to see the world as you did, my journey kind of speaks for itself. I don't think the opportunities that I had for the 8 years that I worked in US, and partly the time I spent in Europe, all of that would have been possible if I had not made that one choice. But when you make that choice, it should be something that you're interested in. Yeah, so I will encourage all of you to spend some time and to find out more.